More anonymous than the Federal Witness Protection Program. It's the Nice Guys on Business.
As a giver, you need space to discern, is this the best use of my time, contributing to the greatest good, or is it really going to sabotage my ability? And since the giver has such difficulty saying no, they're not going to say no, but they're also not going to say yes. Mm-hmm. Here is the phrase that is perfectly works for the giver. I'm not available right now. If you'll notice, I'm not available right now is neither no nor yes.
Well, I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal. People know me. I'm very important. I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells like the Nice Guys on Business. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
Nice Guy community, check this out today. Ridgely Goldsborough. He is a best-selling author of 17 books. He believes in making sense out of things, especially people. Truly an inspiring guy who I've actually had a chance to break bread with when I was down in San Diego a few weeks ago. I hung out with him. I also had a chance to hear him from stage. One word, impressive. Ridgely created this program called Mind Types, a cutting-edge way of understanding yourself, what you stand for, and what drives you, which is what he'll share with us today. And I will play the guinea pig myself. I'm actually a little scared, but I'm up for it. I actually took a moment or two before the recording to do my mind type. I have the responses here. I'm going to share them with Ridgely. I don't even know if he's seen them yet. So I'm really curious if I put him on the spot, what he'll come up with. Better than waiting in line for toilet paper. Certainly, he is a great guest. He is here today. Here's with us. Ridgely, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thank you, sir. I am glad to be here, and I'm glad that we're speaking remotely, given that you just came back from Italy.
I promise I will not be coughing on you today. I have not coughed on anybody. You know, this whole social isolation stuff, I used to think that it was actually a detriment to my personality type, but what I have discovered is I actually don't mind it. I kind of like being a little bit on my own, and now there's an excuse why I'm able to not have to ever leave my house and stay in my pajamas all day.
It's a great time for a reset. It's a great time for a bit of stillness. It's a great time for introspection, for planning, and maybe for reaching out to people that you care about to let them know that you love them.
Oh, what a good thing. You know, you're like a good Hallmark card, all kind of rolled up into one really nice guy.
Thank you.
So let's get into mind type for a moment. So you create, how did you even think of this system? Because it's fascinating to me. Maybe let's go back for just a quick moment. Why don't you share with our community what the mind type quiz or the mind type process is? Then we'll give you guys access to it so you can go out and do it yourself and let Ridgely share the results with you. But what is it? How did you create it and take it from there?
Well, let me ask you a question. So think about this.
Yeah.
When you were an infant and you wanted milk, what did you do?
Cried.
Right. And what happened?
My mom gave me milk.
And then suddenly there's an association that forms that says crying equals success.
Yeah.
And then you wake up in the middle of the night, you're in your crib, it's dark, you're lonely and scared. What do?
You cry.
Right. And what happens?
Your mom comes running to you.
Right. And then the association gets stronger. Crying equals success. And from that point forward, Doug, every time you needed or wanted anything, what did you do?
I definitely cried. And especially as an adult, I find the more I cry,
right. How many,
the more I get, right?
Right. And I imagine a lot of us have adult relatives that still act that way today, but that's okay. What happened is after a while, mom said, Doug, I'm so sorry. You don't get to have whatever you want by screaming and shrieking. And yet you still had needs and wants. You had to figure out something else, do something else, take a different action. So you had a need or want, you took a different action. It worked. And suddenly there's a tiny little filament of belief that is created in that instant. That action worked. Let me log that away somewhere. You had a different need. You tried something else. It didn't work. You discard that action. Tried a third thing. Didn't work either. Discard that action. Go back to that first one. Do it again. It worked a second time. And now another little filament of belief is created. And one or two little filaments are not going to do a whole lot. But imagine now, Doug, hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of filaments wrapped around each other to form a giant cable called your belief system.
Yeah.
That'll hold up anything. And it's not going to change in this incarnation. So as I'm studying brain biology and I'm studying emotional intelligence and I'm looking at all these things, I'm saying, wait a second, there are patterns here. There are patterns. There are reasons people do what they do. And there's a why behind it all that dates back to how they learned to survive at an early age, and therefore it's never going to change. And then we codified it in a series of mind types, and every single human being on planet Earth has a primary mind type, a secondary, and a tertiary mind type. The primary one being why you do what you do, the secondary being often how you manifest your why, and the third talking a little bit more to what you do.
All right. So explain to me and to my community, there are so many different, let's call them personality traits or personality quizzes or tests that are out there. You know, there's DISC profile and there are the birds and there's a bunch of different ones that are out there. And how is it that this is different than just, because this isn't just what I loved about it wasn't just a personality test and it wasn't just an assessment. It kind of took a deeper dive, but in a really quick order. So maybe explain a little the philosophy behind that.
So what my challenge to myself was, as you mentioned, I've written a bunch of different books. 5 of them were actually on the topic of emotional intelligence. And I saw that all of these tools are great, whether it's Strength Finders, Myers-Briggs, Predictive Index, DISC, Kolbe, any of those personality tests. The challenge, Doug, is that they require an interpreter or a coach or someone to help you understand what it really means and how you can use it. And I thought to myself, how unique would it be if we could create a system that would help people understand themselves, understand others, understand their superpowers, understand their kryptonites, that did not require someone to interpret it for you. Yeah. And the challenge that I gave myself is this.
Yeah. 100%. Right? I could not agree with you more. Every time I took one of those freaking tests, it was like, okay, well, you're a DISC, you know, or you're a high D. And I'm like, what the fuck is high D? You know, and it was so great because when I took the test, not only did I get the results in written form, but here comes a video. Now I know there's a finite amount of these and you preloaded the video. So it wasn't specifically for me, but it really was. I mean, you may as well have said every time that you said, hey, Doug, idiot, this is what you are. Look, this fits in your style. And I'm like, damn, he is 100%. He's 100% right about that.
Yeah, I've had a personal challenge with myself that said, if this requires interpretation, it's not simple and straightforward enough. And I got to tell you, it's like that guy that the writer said, forgive the length of this piece right here. I didn't have enough time to make it short. In other words, it's a lot harder to be simple and clean and direct and understandable than to be complex and, you know, make it kind of like the big, elaborate things. That's relatively easy. Right. To get it down to something that anyone can understand and use in their life, that is a lot harder.
All right, can we take a dive into the overall categories, and then can I share with you what the results for mine, and you can kind of share a little bit. And my community, anybody that's been listening to me for more than just a few episodes, will understand that these are totally the categories that I fit into. And I'm like, and even when I had that preliminary phone call with you before we even realized that you were going to be on the show, and before we realized that we were going to meet each other at JVology at Jay Facette's program. You know, within 30-minute period of time, and I know at that point you were running out the door, I was running out the door too, and but you threw in a couple of like these zingers for me. You're like, hey, this is what you are, and this is what you mean, and this is what you tried to give back to the world. And I'm like, you can't just tell me these things and then leave me, Ridgely. So now we have a little bit more extensive period of time to maybe unpack some of these things. So why don't you talk to me about overall what some of the categories are, and then we'll go from there.
So there are 7 mind types, and I'm just going to walk through them very, very quickly. So if you're listening to this right now, ask yourself, what might be me? And trust your intuition. Mm-hmm. Rely on your gut as opposed to your thinking brain. I'm going to walk through them really quickly. Number 1, the giver. The giver is the person who wants to make a difference, add value. They want to have an impact with all that they do. They're looking to contribute however they possibly can to the greater good. So ask yourself, does that feel like you? Number 2, the connector. The person for whom bonds and relationships are everything. Trust is their number 1 core value. They can be relied on all the time. They do what they say they're going to do. They show up when they say they're going to show up. So ask yourself, does that sound like you? Number 3, the problem solver. The problem solver is the person who loves to take in lots and lots of information, process it, and make sense out of it. Simplify it. clarify it for people, come up with options and possibilities for them. They love to come up with solutions that can serve others. Number 4, the innovator. The innovator is the person who's always looking for a better way to do anything and everything. They'll ask the question, well, what about this? And what about this? And how about that? Looking to improve things, to tweak things, whether that's rearranging the garage or setting up a new manufacturing plant.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5, the perfectionist. The perfectionist is the person that understands if you do A, then B, then C, then D. E is predictable. They love doing things the right way, the correct way. They believe that you should dot the I's and cross the T's and follow systems that have been proven to work over and over. Number 6, the rebel. The rebel is the person that thinks differently, lives outside the box, wants to challenge the status quo, the norm, or the convention, constantly in disruptive mode. And then lastly, number 7, the master. The master is the person that loves to go deeper, take things to another level. They study, they're super smart, their brains are very expansive, broad range of knowledge on lots and lots of things. They're the kind of people that would buy an ant farm just to watch the ants and see how those tiny little beings can be so incredibly productive. So again, the giver, the person who wants to contribute, make a difference, add value. The connector, bonds, relationships, trust. The problem solver, makes sense out of things, clarify things, simplify things. The innovator, looking for a better way, always trying to improve it in everything around them. The perfectionist, does things the right way, loves systems. The rebel, challenges the status quo, lives outside the box. And the master goes deeper, always looking to take things to another level. Those are the 7.
I love the simplicity by which you put these all together, and you can even give an example quite easily on each one of these things, and you can relate to just the word giver, connector, problem solver, innovator, perfectionist, rebel, or master. And if you think about those nice guy community, put yourself into one of those categories. And then when you get a moment after this interview, go over to Ridgely's quiz. It's mindtypes.com/quiz. We'll make sure we put a link in the show notes for it. It is a quiz that will actually take you less than 2 minutes to do the entire thing. And what's so great about on the other side, not only do you get a text readout of what this thing means for you and how you fit into that equation, or how that equation fits you, but you also get this video thing if you're more of a visual person, and Ridgely will actually outline in a handful of minutes exactly why this is you and how this relates to you. And when I did the test, for me, it was really a toss-up. There was 3 that I knew that I was going to fit into, but I didn't know where one was going to be over the other. The results for mine were the connector, the giver, and the perfectionist, my first, second, and third. And I think about that connector person. And can you share again the connector, the maybe the sentence or two, and then give an example of who the connector would be?
So the connector is the person that believes in trust, in establishing trust, in being trustworthy. They love bonds and relationships. They create safe spaces. So think about anybody that works with numbers. You know why the connectors love numbers? Because numbers don't lie, right?
So true. So true.
So think about accountants being connectors. Think about people that take care of others that are connectors. Think about someone as literally as simple as the person that holds an office structure together, an office manager. How great if they were a connector that believes in trust, that shows up on time, that does what they say they're going to do, and gets other people to rely on them for whatever they need.
I find myself teeter-tottering between the connector, which is my primary, and the giver, which is my secondary. And I oftentimes find that the giver gets myself in trouble with the connector part of me, because the connector, while he wants to put everything together, the giver always wants to say yes to everything that comes down the road. And the problem with that, as we all know as entrepreneurs, is that we are not short of ideas. We're just short of time. And so being a giver, understanding that I'm a giver, really makes complete sense to me, but it also makes me, pull my hair out sometimes in frustration of, I've got to, I don't know, how do you fix one of the things that you are? Just the understanding that you're that person, that style, or how do you fix that?
Well, no, each of the 7 mind types has their kryptonite, and the kryptonite that you're referring to when it comes to the giver is overcommitment.
Yeah.
Because the giver has such great difficulty saying that no word just doesn't want to come out.
Right.
So but the giver also wants to contribute the most that they possibly can.
Absolutely.
So having an understanding that if you say yes to the little thing, you sabotage your own ability to contribute to the greatest good is important. But actually, you need a technique. And the technique for the giver, I'll just give this one technique for everybody. Understand that there's a technique for each of the mind types, is as follows. You need space. As a giver, you need space to discern, is this the best use of my time, contributing to the greatest good, or is it really going to sabotage my ability? And since the giver has such difficulty saying no, they're not going to say no, but they're also not going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the phrase that is perfectly works for the giver. I'm not available right now. If you'll notice, I'm not available right now is neither no nor yes, but it creates enough space that two good things happen. One, the person making the request may go figure out how to do it themselves, and the request goes away.
Which generally is the solution to the problem.
Right. And number two, it gives the giver space to step back and say, is this the greatest use of my time, or am I actually going to sabotage my ability to make the biggest difference? And makes it much more powerful to say no in the appropriate circumstances. Now, to your point, Doug, you want to give so that you can build trust. Because trust is the core of who you are. And the challenge is if you overcommit, you sabotage your ability to build trust. So there's really a dynamic there that understanding it is so important so that you can give as much as possible without sacrificing the trust that you're creating.
So one of the things that we talked about after I took the test and or maybe you gave me the test without me even realizing that the test was given, because I can't remember if I filled out the exam initially or you had just given it to me as we were having our phone call. But what was so great about it is you built this message. You basically said, hey, here's your message as a result. And again, I know that if you have a chance to connect with people and you have a chance to take a deeper dive into their personalities, this will be something that will really easily come out in the phone call with you. But you created this message. Is it okay if I read the message that you had written?
Of course.
Great. So here's the message. Knowing that my my mind type is the connector, and that my secondary was the giver, and my my tertiary was the perfectionist. Here's the message that normally would be playing over in my mind or outwardly to the world. I'm Doug Sandler, and I believe in relationships based in trust. When we work together, I will go above and beyond to fulfill my promises. If you give me a task, it will be done on or before the agreed deadline. So true in my case. I return every call and every email on time, every time, and do all in my power to underpromise and overdeliver. I will reach out to you steadily so that we can move the ball forward, and I can show you my loyalty to grow our relationship. I want you to know that I'm here for you for the long term, and if it sounds like someone you'd like to work with, give me a call. Now, that could not encapsulate any better. There are 5 or 6 phrases that you had said in there, whether it was, I return every call on time, every time. That's definitely one I always say. I always say, under promise and over deliver, because that's what I'm going to do. I always say, I can show you my loyalty to grow our relationship. Always are working in that world. And I'm always talking about the idea that I'm not just in this for the quick dollar. I'm in this for the long term, and I'm in this for the relationship that's involved. And those are things that I didn't share those with you. You gave those back to me, and hats off to you, Ridgely, for really, really understanding who I am and what I'm all about. I love that idea.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. I appreciate it. And what I did is I just listened profoundly to who you are and allow that to come out. Knowing that you are the connector, secondary, the giver, I then listen profoundly to what you say, and I say, how could we express this in such an authentic, genuine, and natural way that it feels like you, and when you read it, you know, wow, this is me, this is what I'm all about. And oh, by the way, it enables everybody else that comes in contact with this message to say, that Doug Sandler, he's my people. Yeah. That Doug Sandler's my kind of guy. I resonate with what he's saying. I relate to this message that he gave me. It enables them to raise their hand and say, I'm in with Doug.
All right. So knowing what we know about ourselves, in my case, the connector, the giver, and the perfectionist, knowing what we know about that in ourselves, how does that help us, not just with the things that we say to ourselves, but how does that help us align with other people? Are we looking to align with similar mind types, or are we looking to align with those that are in contrast to what we are?
Well, so that's a very complex question, and I'm going to try to answer it as simply as possible. At the end of the day, when I say I like you, Psychologically, I'm generally saying I am a lot like you.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we like people that are kind of like us,
Yeah.
right? If people are
Right.
different or odd or unique or whatever, we tend to shy away from them because we are warm-blooded mammals. We travel in packs, and we generally travel with our kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
The way you can expand your ability to touch many, many people and connect with many, many people is by understanding all of them. So if in addition to understanding the connector, the giver, and the perfectionist, you also understood where's the rebel coming from? How does the master approach the world? What is it about the problem solver that's interesting? Why does an innovator do that? Then suddenly you expand your ability to embrace everyone and to connect with them. So it brings the world closer. So an ideal situation for a team is a team that is made up of diverse mind types that all understand each other, which means the superpowers are in play, making the entire team stronger, and the kryptonites are kept at bay, and people can help each other in that process. So it is natural, of course, to feel very, very comfortable around people who are your mind type, but far more powerful would be to understand everyone, know how you can get along with them, and then select the right team for any particular endeavor, whatever that might be.
So your goal in creating this quiz was to help people understand what their mind type is or was, or it continues to be. What is the next step from there? Understanding it and doing nothing with it is not, not necessarily advantageous to anyone. So tell me, if I know now what my mind type is, what are the services or the types of things that you can help us do in addition to just interpreting what we are all about?
So it's endless, right? It starts with your family. Imagine if you knew the mind type of everyone in your family. You knew their superpower, you knew their kryptonite. You knew how to help them overcome their kryptonite and maximize their superpower. We all want to play to our strengths. I know I read the book by Jim Collins, Good to Great.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he said in that book is you got to get the right people on the bus and you got to make sure they're in the right seat. And if you have the right people in the right seats on the bus, you can do anything. Well, my comeback to that is that sounds great. How do you do that if you don't know their mind type? Almost impossible. You got to know your people to know what is the right seat that fits them so they can play to their strengths, feel amazing, increase productivity, increase efficiencies, and so on. That's part one. But here's part two. People don't care about what you do. People care about why you do what you do. Somebody else does what you do. People want to know, who are you? So when you know your mind type, the ability to express that everywhere is so powerful. So take your message, for example, Doug, and imagine now that on your website, it said, we believe in relationships based in trust. We believe going above and beyond. We believe in under promising and over delivering. We believe in moving the ball forward and long-term loyalty. It said those things that absolutely come from you. They're 100% authentic. That would give people the ability to raise their hand and say, this is exactly who I'm looking for. This is my kind of people. I'm in. So therefore, you attract ideal clients to your business and you reject the ones who don't believe what you believe, that you don't want to have anything to do with anyway.
It's funny. I just recalled that I have on the signature line of my email, and everybody on our team, we asked them to do the same thing, just so we could all, kind of be in uniform with what we're providing. But I have the 4 key points to my DISC profile at the tail end of my email. According to Doug's DISC profile, Doug hates spreadsheets and long emails. He's persistent and patient, making him great with follow-up. Doug loves words of affirmation, and Doug loves people and relationships. So maybe
There you go.
Maybe we need to reverse that and have our mind type put together for all 10 of us that are on the team and put that at the signature line, because I think that actually yours goes a step beyond where that DISC profile leaves off, and not just personality, but action statements also. So I really like this idea.
No, it's super powerful. Imagine a business that's out there. So for example, I got a little water here next to me. So listen to the difference. You're going to feel the difference in classic messaging versus mind type authentic messaging. It's all about a water, right?
I'm ready.
At ABC Water, we have the finest water from the deepest stream with all the antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals to hydrate your body even after a long workout. Want to buy some? That motivates nobody to select this water versus some other water. Okay, now let's just say it's a connector-giver combination. Okay, Doug, so I'm going with your combination, and I'm just going to create a message right now. At our water, we believe that the body is a temple. and only the finest ingredients should ever be put into it. We have the deepest water from the purest stream with all the antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals that you need to hydrate your body. Want to join the cause?
Yeah, it's a big day. You belong on Park Avenue doing some or Madison Avenue doing you're a madman.
Well, that's what I do with companies all over all the time on a very large scale, and sometimes with entrepreneurs as well, to help them express who they are so that they don't attract the yucky clients. I mean, think about the last bad client, man. Everybody's got a classic one of like, oh my gosh, my blood starts boiling.
I know.
Right?
We're
Versus the beautiful clients that do what they say they're going to do, appreciate you, refer people. What if you only attracted those and never attracted the other ones? How amazing would your business be? Right? So that's what I try to do with people in terms of back to your question of how does this go to another level? Well, it's organizational dynamics within inside of a team and getting everybody to understand each other better. And from an external perspective, it's expressing who you truly are so that you attract ideal people who believe what you believe.
All right. So let's talk directly to those that are in our community that say, this is some pretty cool shit. I mean, I like what this is all about. Let's figure out if this is something that I need. Let's assume for just a second you are now a surgeon and you have a precision scalpel in your hands and you are about to do surgery. There's somebody that is in my community that is suffering from these symptoms that need to undergo the surgical procedure that you offer. Who is it, or what symptoms are they experiencing when you feel like this is the best time for you to pick up the phone or to take this quiz to see if you know what your mind type is?
So anyone that has a presence that they would like to grow by attracting better clients and better people to work with, this is absolutely perfect for. So I think of, for example, some of the classic cases of companies that I've been able to help that are horrendous with their marketing, such as chiropractors, dentists, lawyers. Those guys are the worst. But really, it's any entrepreneur that expresses what they do and basically has an online brochure for a website that wants to take that brochure and convert it into a business building machine. That's the kind of people that we can help to a great deal, because basically, I'm not to be funny, and certainly with no disrespect intended, most websites are online brochures.
Right.
They could be business conversion tools.
Right. No, I completely agree with you. All right. So take me through your process. What happens? Somebody takes the quiz. They like the idea. Then do they have a consultation with you? What does that look like?
So we have lots of different ways of making that happen because, of course, I'm always trying to help as many people as possible. And the large corporations that I work with obviously have very big pockets, very big budgets and deep pockets. By the way, at the moment, I'm not working with any of them because all events have been canceled, but that's okay.
Right. Isn't that crazy? And again, if you're listening to this just as it's coming out, which will be in about a week, and you're listening to this or we're recording this in the middle of March, so it's probably going to come out in the next couple of weeks, but before April 1st in 2020. If you're listening to this in the replay, you may have no idea what we're talking about. If you're listening 5 years down the road, this is the viral equivalent of 9/11 right now, and unfortunately, this is a horrible situation that we're dealing in. Most of our events, personal outside of the house events, face-to-face events, corporate events, they have been canceled due to this dreaded virus that's been going around. And if you're listening to this 20 years from now and have no idea what we're talking about, even better. This was the worst time that you could possibly be in, except for that thing that's going to happen in 2025. But Ridgely and I aren't allowed to talk about it yet.
That's right. So the other way to do it, and this is what I'm doing now, is to say, wait a second, because of this international crisis that we're dealing with, everybody is at home. So it's the absolute perfect time to work on your site, work on your messaging, work on who you are, express that to the world so that you have a much better platform to move forward with once this crisis ends, which it most certainly will at some point, hopefully in the near term. So the other way that I do this is we have a Mind Types workshop that people have access to as soon as they go through the process of discovering your mind type through the quiz. You can go to the workshop, and if that makes sense to you and seems like a fit, you can join us in creating your website messaging. We have a mastermind that we have online. We get together on an ongoing basis, and I literally break down people's sites in real time, help them to take their authentic messaging, just like I did with you a little while ago, and create statements that reflect who you are so that you attract great clients to your business.
Nice, nice. And I appreciate you sharing all that information. Again, Nice Guy Community, head over to mindtypes.com/quiz to get all that information. Just check the link in the show notes. It'll be right there. So don't worry about the spelling of any of that stuff. Hey, Ridgely, before we wrap on this interview, I want to take a brief pause from where we are talking about the business that you run and the services that you offer, and I want to talk to the entrepreneur that actually runs and owns this business, especially today's day and age right now, where we're all trying to figure out what is the next step, or how do I pivot from what I'm doing now to regain some of that income that potentially is lost. Can I ask you a couple of questions just about running your business as an entrepreneur?
Of course.
So, what is some, and I know right now we're all dealing with that struggle of what's the pivot that we're going to, because most of what we do, if it involves anything involving the public, is not happening, even a temporary pause, which can shut down many businesses, especially some of the newer businesses. You explained an experience that you had back in 9/11 in 2001. So maybe could you just go through that quickly and maybe compare that to what's going on now and talk about some of the lessons you may have learned, just in case there's somebody's listening that says, hey, this is a good idea because this is not at all the direction that I wanted my business to go and I don't know what to do. So talk about 2001 and 2020 right now and maybe some of the things that you've learned.
So for sure, and again, this may not be the advice for everyone, but I feel so deeply powerfully about this that I'm going to share it just like it was for me. Because here was the big lesson that I learned right after 9/11. The writing was on the wall that if I didn't take action immediately, I was done. And it still took me about a month and a half, almost 2 months of trying to hang on to something that wasn't there because I didn't make the right decisions quickly enough. So the lessons that I took away were, when you have to retrench and you need to look at the long term, cut deep, cut hard, and cut fast. Those are the three things that I will never make that same mistake. I had a huge amount of revenue coming in over the next couple months from speaking jobs. All of it has at least temporarily gone away. So what I'm doing now, reset. What is the foundation? What are the foundational pieces? What has worked for me for the last decade? How do I prepare for that to be ready to roll as soon as this crisis ends, which it inevitably will? Yeah. So don't mess around. If you've got something that you can do, some action that you can take, be bold about it. That would probably be my top advice.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that advice. And I relate that to like what's going on in my life right now and the services that we offer. And, while you hate to be opportunistic about things that you have, and presenting them to the world that is maybe in crisis, my feeling is, I want to do one of two things. I want to, one, be able to offer what I do to the world, but I also don't want to appear to be, capitalizing on a horrible situation. But how else do you offer what you have? It's like, hey, I guess I could give it away, but then I'd be in the same position that everybody else is in. And unfortunately, I don't want to be in that position because I didn't do this on purpose, but 5 or 6 years ago, or 5 years ago when we started this podcast, I had no idea I was planting the seeds for a business that was going to grow the way that it has. And then to be able to turn around and look at what's going on in the world and say, well, I guess that sucks for a lot of people. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, last week was probably one of my busiest weeks in 6 months of business acquisition, because people are now realizing this is a really trying time that we're living in right now. So, yeah. I don't know how to approach this other than just offer what I have to the world that's out there. And hopefully those that are seeing me as opportunistic won't look at me and say, man, you selfish bastard, look, what are you doing?
No, I think you have to be strong, Doug. And what's interesting for me is, having gone through the crisis in 9/11 and lost a company that I had to bankrupt, and now being here again, facing a very similar crisis. The difference is that experience says to me, be strong, it will pass. And do yourself a favor. Be strong for others. Be there for the person who's really suffering. If somebody needs a smile, give them yours. Be that beacon, that light, so that when this is all said, done, and we're getting back to normal or whatever, you're already hitting the ground running. You don't have to go through some kind of recovery period. Retrench, reset, focus on the fundamentals, focus on the basics. Be strong for yourself, be strong for your family, be strong for whatever piece of the community that you're still touching, whether that's online or on the rare occasions that you venture out.
Yeah, man, I appreciate your advice very much. I know that you've been through the test a couple of times, which is why I wanted to ask you the question. I hope it wasn't too deep for you to be able to relive that moment back in 2001. But as I said when we were talking before I hit record, man, what an interesting, telling story, and what a valuable lesson to learn. And I know you've learned a lot from it, and I know you have a whole different philosophy and a whole new mindset for how to appreciate and respect where you are, just from what's happened over the last couple of times through these horrible moments that we've been through in time.
Yeah, 100%. And a deep appreciation for the suffering that some people are going through, as well as an absolute commitment to do my part, whatever I can do to relieve some of that.
Well, Ridgely, I appreciate you being here, and your message inspiring, and I'm looking forward to getting some positive results from our community. mindtypes.com/quiz. Ridgely, thanks for being on the show today.
And thank you for having me. I really appreciate you.
Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Ridgely Goldsborough. All of his information, including access to the Mind Types quiz, mindtypes.com/quiz, will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the nice guys on business, and in accordance with my court-mandated community service, I'm Steve O'Brien. Only 27 more voiceovers to go, and then maybe they'll let me leave the state and take this ankle bracelet off.